Hey everyone! This is a quick reminder to subscribe and hit that like button. It lets me know that you are enjoying my content. Also, feel free to drop your suggestions for future stories in the comments below. Thank you for listening, and let's dive right in. My life was a dream. Not the surreal, cryptic kind with backwards clocks and falling teeth. No, I mean one of those disgustingly wholesome Pinterest board dreams. You know the type. Sunlit kitchen, soft baby giggles, a ridiculously attractive husband who always looked like he stepped out of a cologne ad and somehow knew exactly where the best lighting was. The kind of man who wore a button-down shirt like it was stitched onto his soul. His name was Ryder. Yeah, of course it was. We met in college, the classic, oops, I dropped my notebook, meet cute, that sounds fake but actually happened. I bent down to grab it, he bent down to help me, and boom. Instant connection. It didn't hurt that he was tall, had shoulders like he could bench press a pickup, and those eyes, warm brown with just enough mischief to make you wonder what kind of trouble he'd get you into. We became inseparable. Study buddies turned partners in crime. He majored in business, I was the starving artist cliché, messy bun, charcoal smudges, always broke. Somehow it worked. We graduated, landed jobs, got a dog, named him Tater Tot because Ryder said Nacho was too basic. He proposed in the middle of a crowded farmer's market. Said he couldn't wait another second, right as I was mid-bite into a maple bacon donut. I said yes with powdered sugar on my lips. Marriage came fast. Then Skylar, our little starlight, born with a shock of wild brown curls and the kind of lungs that could shatter glass. I left my job to stay home with her, and Ryder's career took off like someone had lit a rocket under it. He worked hard, provided. We moved into a bigger house in a quiet neighborhood where everyone smiled too much and had solar panels. It was the kind of life people envied, and maybe that was the first mistake. Having it all. Because something always notices when you do. When Skylar hit that magical age where she actually napped like a decent human being, I started getting tiny slices of time back. Not much, maybe an hour here, 2 hours if the nap gods were feeling generous. But it was enough. I started painting again. Art had always been my thing. Before the diapers and onesies and emotional breakdowns in grocery store parking lots, I'd actually been pretty good at it. I studied fine arts in college, dreamed of gallery openings and wine-soaked nights filled with critiques and compliments. But then life happened, as it does. As a wedding gift, Ryder converted the back room into a studio. Floor-to-ceiling windows, sunlight all day long, big enough to store every unfinished canvas I'd ever dragged with me across our various apartments. It smelled like linseed oil and possibility. It was mine. And when I wasn't painting, I was hunting. Not deer. Not vibes. Art. Not the polished gallery stuff, either. I liked the weird pieces. The ones that looked like they whispered back. The kind of haunted thrift store paintings that probably had a backstory involving divorce, a seance, or mild possession. So yeah, that's what brought me to Second Wind Thrift that day. It was one of those places that looked like time had forgotten it. Half the letters on the sign had peeled off, the entrance bell wheezed like a dying harmonica, and the whole place smelled like mothballs, old raincoats, and someone's long-dead aunt. But that's where the good stuff always lived, hidden between the broken blenders and the porcelain cats with missing eyes. That's where I saw it, tucked in the far corner, almost like it didn't want to be found. Half covered by a dusty crocheted blanket that looked like it had witnessed at least 2 divorces and a failed knitting circle. The painting. It looked ancient, frame crumbling at the corners, gold leaf peeling like sunburnt skin. The canvas was cracked, flaking in spots, but the image gripped me. Deep black and bruised crimson swirled together like ink dropped in water. Strange, spidery symbols wrapped through it. No language I knew, but they throbbed with this weird, silent meaning. Almost like they recognized me, like we'd met before. The longer I stared, the more I felt like it was staring back. Naturally, it was priced at $3. $3 freaking dollars. That should have been a sign, right? A warning from the universe? But no, I thought I was scoring a deal. I snatched it up without a second thought. Walked out feeling like I'd just robbed a museum. My plan? Restore it. Hang it in the studio as a conversation piece. Maybe post a cheeky pic with a caption like, "Found this cursed object for $3, can't wait to accidentally summon a demon lol." Funny, it did start a conversation. just not the kind anyone ever wants to have. The first thing I tackled was the frame. It had that tragic kind of beauty, like something you'd pull from a shipwreck or a haunted Victorian attic. The wood was warped and chipped, the once golden finish so faded it looked more like dried mustard than gilding. Most people would have junked it, but I saw the potential. The bones were good. I laid it flat on my work table, gently sanded the brittle edges, and started reapplying gold leaf by hand. That part always felt like therapy. Delicate work, repetitive, a little tedious. Usually I'd get bored halfway through and abandon it for something flashier, like slapping oil paint on a new canvas. But this time, I didn't want to stop. Something about the process felt essential, like the frame needed me to finish it. Skylar was asleep down the hall, the baby monitor hissing faintly on the windowsill. Outside, a breeze tickled the wind chimes Ryder had insisted were rustic. Inside, my studio was warm, quiet, filled with the faint scent of linseed oil and gold adhesive. And something else. A sound. At first, I thought it was just the old radiator, or maybe the ceiling fan which liked to hum when it wasn't feeling cooperative. But then I noticed it again. Soft, flickering, a whisper. Not loud, barely even there, like when you're alone and think you hear your name behind you, but no one's there. I froze. The brush in my hand hovered midair, gold leaf stuck to the tip like a flake of sun. I waited. Nothing. Just that ever so slight tickle in the back of my brain, the kind that makes your spine twitch even though you don't know why. I told myself it was nothing. Stress, sleep deprivation, paint fumes doing a little dance in my skull. But when I looked back down at the painting, I swear the colors looked richer, deeper. Like they'd been watered overnight. It was uncanny. Still abstract, still full of those crimson swirls and impossible shapes, but somehow more vivid. I shook it off, slapped on my favorite playlist, kept working. Ryder noticed the obsession creeping in before I did. One night, I was bent over the frame, eyes burning from focusing too long, when I felt him standing in the doorway. I turned, and there he was, arms crossed, expression somewhere between amused and concerned. "You even eat today?" he asked. "Or are you still making out with the demon painting?" I grinned. "I had toast and coffee. Maybe, I think." He came over and poked the edge of the canvas. "I'm just saying, I haven't seen you this into a project since that semester you sculpted a 6-foot Venus flytrap out of chicken wire. Art takes commitment. Art's about to take my wife." I rolled my eyes. "Please. You're just jealous because it listens better than you." He kissed the top of my head, muttered something about ordering Thai, and left the room. I told myself it was cute, just a phase. I'd finish the restoration, hang it up, and move on. Like I always did. But I didn't. The painting changed, not dramatically. No poltergeist nonsense, no bleeding eyeballs or figures crawling out of the frame. But it shifted. Just slightly, a curve where there hadn't been one the day before. A smudge of black that used to rest in the corner now pressed into the center like a bruise. It was subtle, yes, but unmistakable. And I noticed, because I couldn't stop watching it, every nap time, every night, every free second I had. I was in the studio, staring, studying, breathing with it. The colors seemed to deepen in the shadows. The geometry, once chaotic, began to make sense. Like a puzzle only I could solve. Too perfect, too intentional to be random. One night, I was brushing my teeth when I realized I'd started dreaming about it. Not in metaphors, not as symbols, just the painting, floating in my dreams like it belonged there. Calling, and always, always whispering. Skylar refused to go near the studio. She didn't have the words yet for most things, she was barely 2, but she had a toddler's 6th sense. One night, Ryder tried to carry her in while I was working, and she screamed bloody murder. "She doesn't like it in here," I said, half laughing, trying to diffuse the tension. Ryder didn't laugh back. She said it smells like buzzing. That stopped me cold. He left with her, muttering something about her needing a bath. I stayed. Of course I stayed. I stayed until dawn, watching the way the shapes curled in on themselves. Whispers curling through the vents like cigarette smoke. By the end of the week, I couldn't tell if I was restoring the painting or if it was restoring me. I stopped painting my own canvases, stopped cooking, forgot to charge my phone. Didn't care. Because when I sat in front of the painting, I felt alive. The whispering was stronger now, not just background noise. It had rhythm, intention, words formed soft and slow. Not like any voice I'd ever heard. not human. But it made sense, like dreams do right before you wake up. It told me things about where it came from, about the world that made it, about the ones who wanted me to see it. And I listened. It wasn't just the colors anymore. Not just the whispers, the shifting shapes, the eerie comfort I found in its impossible design. It was the geometry. It had started bending. One afternoon, as Skylar napped and the house exhaled into silence, I noticed a spiral near the corner of the canvas looping in a way that shouldn't have been physically possible. It curved inward, twice, like a fold that wasn't flat but also wasn't 3D, like it was folding through itself. A few days later, a corner that had always been black began glowing faintly, only in the dark, only when I tilted my head just right. I took pictures, but they never showed what I saw, just static shapes, dead color. To anyone else it was the same painting, but to me it was alive. "You've been staring at that thing for 3 hours, Ryder said, leaning against the doorway with that same concerned edge he'd been sharpening lately. I pointed. "This curve wasn't here last week. And look, this symbol, right in the center, that used to be on the left." He squinted at the painting like he was trying to care. "It's the same." "It's not," I snapped. "Too fast, too sharp." He blinked. "Okay, sorry, just, maybe take a break? We haven't had dinner together in, a week?" I didn't answer. I couldn't pull my eyes away from the canvas, not even when he sighed and left the room. The argument started small. Little digs, comments over cold takeout and laundry that never got folded. "You're always in there. She cried for you for an hour. I'm doing this alone." Maybe he was right, but I was doing something important. The painting spoke to me now, not in full sentences, yet, but words. Soft, coiled like vines. They threaded through the air when the house was quiet, through the gaps between heartbeat and breath. They weren't English, not exactly, but I understood them. The way you understand grief. Or fear. It told me about the ones who made it. What they were, what they are. About the others, the ones watching through it. And God help me, I wanted to see more. Skylar changed too. My sweet girl, once giggly and bright, became quiet, moody. She clung to Ryder like he was her oxygen tank, and the rest of the world was smoke. She refused to enter the studio anymore. Screamed if I tried to carry her in. One night, she cried for 45 minutes because she saw the painting through a crack in the door. "She's scared of you," Ryder said. I laughed, but it came out bitter. She's scared of pigeons. "She says you smell like the buzzing room," he snapped. I blinked. I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything. The days blurred. I stopped painting anything else. I'd sit for hours just watching the painting breathe. Yes, breathe. The swirls pulsed like lungs. The shapes shifted, rearranged themselves while I blinked, while I dreamed. The whispers grew louder at night when the moon was high and the house was quiet. It told me about Ryder, about his fear, his anger, his guilt, and about Skylar, her future, her place in this puzzle. It was knowledge I never asked for, truths no one should carry. But I understood, in a way I never had before. One night, Ryder stood in the doorway again. His face was pale, his voice hoarse. "You've changed." I turned slowly. "So? You're not the woman I married. I don't even know who you are anymore." I opened my mouth to argue. But all that came out was, "I think I know who I am more now than ever before." He looked at me like I'd just spoken in tongues, like I was a stranger wearing his wife's face, and that was the night he tried to take it. He walked right up to the wall and yanked the painting down, like it was nothing, like it hadn't chosen me. I screamed. I don't even remember what I said. I just remember the sound, raw and animal, bursting out of me as if he were tearing my heart out. I threw a jar of varnish, missed, shoved him so hard he hit the wall, a picture frame shattered. He dropped the painting, and then he left. Took Skylar, didn't say where he was going, didn't need to. The house was silent again, just me and the painting. The one thing that hadn't abandoned me. Skylar stopped calling me Mom. When Ryder brought her back for visits, she'd hide behind his leg, wouldn't look me in the eye, and that broke something in me. But not enough to stop, because the painting still whispered, and I wasn't done listening. After Ryder took Skylar and left, the house was too quiet. No baby monitor static, no toddler squeals, no footsteps, no laughter, no clinking of coffee mugs in the morning, just me and the painting. And honestly, I preferred it that way. I stopped pretending, didn't try to make dinner, didn't check the mail, didn't even bother folding the throw blankets Ryder always said I artistically crumpled across the furniture. There was no more house. There was just room, studio, altar. The painting didn't need anything from me. No expectations, no sighs, no walking on eggshells glances. It just welcomed me. The whispers weren't whispers anymore. They were words now. Full sentences, clearer than dreams, louder than thoughts, still not in any human tongue. But I knew what they meant. They told me secrets about time, about the folds between seconds, about how colors bleed when the universe begins to tear. They told me things about Ryder, about what he'd done before he met me, about his fear of death, about the way he envied me. They told me about Skylar, what she was meant to be, what I'd interrupted by keeping her in this world. Some nights I wept, others I laughed so hard it scared the neighbor's dog, but most of the time, I just listened. House was silent. No Ryder, no Skylar. Not even their scent on the sheets. I didn't panic, I just walked to the studio and sat. The painting greeted me like an old friend. And I stayed, eyes wide, heart still, not eating, not sleeping, just breathing with it. It was peace, perfect, radiant silence, until the door opened. Ryder stood in the doorway, older than before, eyes hollowed out by sleepless nights. He didn't speak at first, just stared, like he wasn't sure I was real. Behind him, a man in a white coat clutched a clipboard. That's when I saw the papers in Ryder's hands, divorce papers, signed and shaking. "I'm sorry," he said, voice trembling, "but you need help." The doctor asked questions I didn't answer, tried to use that slow, soothing voice like I was fragile, breakable. I smiled at him, because I knew things about him now too. When they tried to take me, I screamed. Not words, just noise, like my throat was tearing in two. I told them they couldn't take it from me, that they didn't understand, that it needed me. But they dragged me out anyway. White room, fluorescent lights, the smell of bleach and defeat. They tied me to the bed and pumped my veins full of something thick and cold. My thoughts turned to fog. My limbs stopped listening. But even then, drugged, dazed, floating, I could still hear it. The painting. It wasn't with me physically. Didn't matter. It was inside me now. The whispers slid behind my eyes like shadows dancing underwater. Time got weird. Or maybe the drugs made it that way. The days dripped by in slow motion. The clocks ticked like they were underwater. Everything was muted, like I'd been shoved behind glass. They talked to me sometimes. The nurses, the doctors. Tried to ask about Ryder, about Skylar, about the painting. I tried to answer. Really, I did. But they wanted me to speak in their language. The safe one. The clean one. I didn't know how to do that anymore. Not since I started dreaming in glyphs and geometry. They thought I was lashing out. They called it delusion, attention-seeking. But then, one night, the whispers told me something about Dr. Vargas. His mother didn't die of a heart attack. She slipped. He let her. I told him. Right there in the hallway. Softly. He went pale. Didn't speak to me again. Next week, they upped my dosage. Another night, I told a nurse her husband was cheating. Where? With who? How long? She slapped the tray out of my hand. They called me unstable, unwell, but I saw the cracks form in their certainty, the fractures behind their eyes, and still, the painting whispered, steady as ever. Sometimes I opened my eyes and saw Ryder sitting at the edge of my bed, always a little older, always a little sadder. Once I saw Skylar. She was maybe 16, tall, sharp cheekbones, my eyes, Ryder's mouth. She looked right at me, and then she cried. I wanted to speak, to reach out, but my arms wouldn't move. That was the last time I saw her. I don't think I've opened my eyes since, but I still see the painting. It's with me, always. It tells me to wake up, to come home, to finish what I started. I don't know how long I was under, weeks, months, maybe years. Time didn't flow the way it used to. It pulsed, twitched, bled. The drugs dulled everything, my muscles, my thoughts, my sense of being. I floated somewhere between sleep and waking, like I was buried under layers of warm sand, too heavy to move, too soft to escape. But even in that drugged haze, the painting never left me. It whispered, always, not just to me, through me, like I'd become its mouthpiece, its echo chamber, its broken speaker. It didn't need canvas anymore. It lived in my bones, my breath. It was me. They stopped asking me questions after a while. I think I scared them. Even when I didn't speak, they could feel it, the wrongness, the hum beneath my skin. The day nurse crossed herself after checking my vitals. The night one whispered that I blinked in my sleep, but the painting still spoke. especially when the meds started wearing off. It told me stories. Some were beautiful. Some were horrifying. All of them were true. And then one day, I woke up. But not in the hospital, not in the white room. I was outside. Sunlight warmed my skin. There were voices, dozens of them, laughter, music drifting faintly from somewhere nearby. I blinked, disoriented, heart pounding in my chest. The smell of cut grass, fresh notebooks, burnt espresso. I was on a college campus. My college campus. Same brick buildings. Same student bulletin boards with way too many flyers for improv groups. I turned, slowly, one trembling hand shielding my eyes from the sun. And then, there he was, Ryder. Young, alive, unburdened, t-shirt, messenger bag slung over one shoulder, that ridiculous charming smile like he didn't know the universe was about to rewrite itself around him. He wasn't walking toward me. Not yet. He was walking past, and I was holding a notebook. It slipped from my hand, just like before. He bent down to pick it up, and in that split second, I realized I'd been dropped back into the moment, the first thread of everything, the beginning. My throat closed around a lump of memories so thick I could barely speak, but I tried. Ryder, I said, it's me. It's Faith. We fall in love, remember? You propose at the farmer's market. We have a daughter, Skylar. She's perfect. You build me an art studio. I find a painting. It changes everything. He looked at me like I'd just handed him a math textbook written in Greek. Right, he said, blinking. Well, nice to meet you, I guess. He handed me the notebook, flashed a polite smile, and walked away. Didn't look back, didn't know me, because none of it had happened. Not to him, not yet, maybe not ever. I stood there, frozen, clutching that notebook like it was the only piece of my life I had left. The sunlight stung my eyes. The laughter around me sounded warped and distant, like it was underwater. Skylar was gone. Ryder didn't remember me. The house, the art, the fights, the whispers, the madness, it was all erased, except for me. And then, like a final knife twist, I saw it. On a table set up near the library steps, some kind of community flea market or donation drive. The painting. Same chipped frame, same sickly golden edges, same impossible swirls that curved where they shouldn't, same breathless symbols, still moving. It was waiting. Not in a dark thrift shop this time, not hidden, just waiting, like it always had been. This time I didn't feel wonder. I felt rage, because I understood now. It hadn't saved me, it hadn't given me some divine revelation, it had looped me, reset the board, and I was still its pawn, but my feet didn't move. Because, what if? What if I took it again, and this time I did things right? What if I never restored it, never let it speak? What if I could have Skylar back? Or, what if it took even more? I tried to tell them. The professors, the campus nurse, even some poor freshmen who probably thought I was trying out for a campus play. I told them the truth, that I'd lived another life, that I was married, that I was a mother, that a painting had stolen everything from me. They smiled, nodded slowly, made phone calls, and soon I was right back where I'd been before. Another quiet room, another ticking clock, another white coat. The word delusional hung in the air like perfume. And maybe, if you hear it enough, you start to believe it too. And then one day, I was walking down a hallway and I saw it. The painting, hanging crookedly in a corridor between a vending machine and a wall full of motivational posters, like it had always been there. The shapes were moving again, the swirls breathing, the colors humming, and it whispered, my name. Soft, familiar, like a lullaby I'd forgotten. And in that moment, I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel crazy. I felt home. They could keep their pills, their labels, their keys. I had the painting. And that was all I ever really needed.